At the start of year 11, I sat a English literature paper and I got a grade 3. I sat that paper and I had no clue what to do. I was completely I was completely clueless, and I sat there and I basically didn't know what to write. So because in year 10 I'd set myself a goal to achieve all nines in my GCSEs, I thought, okay, after this failure, there's no way I can get a grade 9 in English. So I thought to myself, okay, let me change my goal to achieving all nines in every subject other than English. So that became my mindset for the rest of the year. And what I realized after was there's no point in me getting all nines in every subject if I fail English, because if I fail English, there's a chance of me not getting into sixth form or college. So I said, okay, out of necessity, I have to get at least a pass in GCSE English and make sure I don't completely fuck it up like in year 11, like in the start of the year where I got grade 3. I cannot let this happen again. And I thought to myself, okay, I must pass GCSE English as a bare minimum. If I don't pass, I might ruin my chances of getting into sixth form, and that would be completely stupid, because there's no point getting nines in all these other subjects but then not even passing English. So my goal was to pass English, and for that, because I thought I was so bad at English, I would have to do my absolute best. And what I actually ended up achieving was a grade 8 in GCSE English Literature, and I was 2 marks away from a 9 in my actual GCSEs. So in this video, I will be telling you exactly how I made that jump from grade 3 mindset to grade 8 and actually achieving very close to grade 9 in GCSE English Literature. So my mindset at the start was, it's English, it doesn't make sense. There's no way, there's nothing I can actually do to get more marks, and it's all rubbish. It's all bullshit I have to write, and I don't know why some people get more marks than me and some people don't. So what I didn't realize is, when you look at the mark scheme, there's a thing called assessment objectives, AOs, and these are all marked out of a certain value, and depending on how many marks from each AO or assessment objective you get more marks. So I didn't realize in my brain that it's actually marked based on some actual mark scheme and not just how I write it. So that helped, because my mindset at the start was there's no way for me to improve because GCSE English Literature is a bunch of rubbish and there's no way to actually get more marks. I didn't realize this, but assessment objectives are what you need. So first of all, this is our focus: assessment objectives to get more marks, and we will get closer to a 9. And there's many ways to optimize for assessment objectives, and one of these, which everyone does, is exam structure. So most people are using the peel paragraphs in some form, something like this. And personally, because I had no basis of what to use, I personally used a lot of online information. I referred to Mr. Everything English's pretzel paragraphs, which is a bunch of different things which cover all the assessment objectives. And the assessment objectives are AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4. AO1 is to understand the text and to use quotes basically to refer to it. So if right now you're thinking using quotes gets you more marks, it doesn't. It's only AO1. That doesn't make up most of your marks. AO2 is your analysis of the language, the form, the structure, all the different techniques that are used. So there's many of these which you can find in your quotes and the text, and you need to be able to analyze these and explain what their purpose is. AO3 is understanding the relationship between text and context. And what this means is you need to understand why the thing is written as it is. You need to understand the writer's intentions, context, meaning the actual use of having the text like this in the era it was written in. So for example, the context of a Shakespearean play in a Jacobean era, you need to explain why it's been done like that for that era, because that audience is different to the 2025 audience, and that makes up a fraction of your total marks. And I didn't know this, but originally I didn't have any idea of this, but this is what actually gets you more marks. And AO4 is using a range of vocabulary and sentence structures for clarity. So that is basically your SPAG marks, your grammar, your vocab. It's not as critical in English literature as it is for English language, so for this video I'm not going to place as much importance on that and be more focused on AO1, AO2, AO3. And so I realized that these assessment objectives are what I need to get more marks. So what you can do is optimize your exam structure, find the one which best suits what you can follow such that you hit all the assessment objectives. And I do recommend the pretzel paragraphs from Mr. Everything English's YouTube channel. You can search up Mr. Everything English on YouTube and search pretzel paragraph. He will explain his own structure and why it works. But essentially, you need a paragraph structure, essay structure, which hits all the AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4 marks. And this should be one of the focuses for your revision. You need to memorize not 50 quotes. You need to memorize a few high quality quotes which you can apply to any situation, because there's no point of remembering 50 different quotes if they're not all useful and they're not all going to get you marks. So it is more valuable to memorize quotes which you can apply across many different exam questions so basically you want a quote which you can use for any question they give you. So most questions will ask about character and theme. So ideally you want to have one quote per character, or maybe two quotes per character and one quote per theme. This is going to help you because, first of all, these quotes will have both, and they will have both character and theme within them. And this is helpful because you can memorize fewer quotes and apply them in more different questions. So pick a quote for a character pick a quote for each theme and make flashcards. This is what I did. I used the Anki app on my phone for flashcards, which is completely free, by the way. You can install it now. So what I did was I made flashcards with the actual quotes on the front, and on the back is the analysis of the quote, because there's no point memorizing a quote if you don't remember the analysis. If you memorize the quote and the analysis, that's most of your marks just easily memorized, and that makes GCSE English literature so much easier. So memorize the quotes, memorize the analysis, and memorize the context as well for each quote. And for example, you can get a question about how does the theme of kingship or something come up in Macbeth, and because you memorized a few quotes for each character, each theme, you can apply a few of these quotes to that same, because they apply interchangeably for characters and themes. You can apply quite a few of your quotes which you memorized to this, and this is applicable for any text in GCSE English literature. So memorize a few high quality quotes rather than memorizing many, and memorize the analysis. This will help you a lot. Use the free flashcards I mentioned below, and I'll put the link below. And this, okay, so we've covered the quotes, we've covered the analysis. Now context. Context is important. Context makes up most of the AO3 marks, and it's not covered all the time. So context is how you know the meaning of the word context, and we're applying that to the text. So the context of, for example, Macbeth is that it's a play written in a Jacobean era for a Jacobean audience, and we can apply the themes in the play to how they will be portrayed, and the intention of those themes being used and how the intention of these themes being used in the text for the audience. So how they will affect the audience. This is context. This is how you understand what the play is actually for, what each text is for. And this applies to the 19th century novel and your modern era text. So this makes up AO3, which in GCSE English literature is 15% of your marks, but it's still a place which you can lose marks from, so we still focus on this. This needs to be applied thoroughly and throughout every paragraph. Every structure should have AO1, AO2, AO3, a deep analysis. It doesn't need to be as focused on AO1, which is your quotes, and AO3, your context. These are the three main things you need your structure to be focused on. And this is how I got the grade 8. This is how I managed to get 2 marks away from a 9, even though I was just trying to pass. So if all this isn't making sense, if you need more support to improve, refer to examiner reports, read examiner reports, because they will tell you exactly how you can apply, exactly what you need to apply, and exactly where people go wrong, and why they don't hit those AO1, AO2, and AO3 marks. Apply this and you will do better. So I've covered everything for the text, but what about poetry? Well, for poetry, it's somewhat similar. If you memorize 5 poems which you can compare to any other poem which can come up, and you remember the quotes, you remember the analysis, you can apply that, and that will make your GCSE English literature so much easier, because you're not having to memorize every single poem. You just memorize analysis quotes from 5 poems you know, which you can link to every other poem. And this is something you will have to find for yourself. You will have to find out which 5 poems these are going to be, because you need to understand why that is. You need to understand the themes which those poems have, which link with every other poem, and why that is. So go over all your poems and find out where your poems link. Now, what about unseen poetry? Most people don't do anything for unseen poetry and they lose marks. Do not do this, because you're trying to do well. You can't be losing marks, right? So obviously you need to prepare. My school gave me a 5-step way to go about the unseen poetry, and unseen poetry is a bit weird because there's not much context to go off of. So in terms of context marks, they're not really there. So what's left is AO1 and AO2 marks. AO1 and AO2 marks will make up the bulk of your unseen poetry essay, and in terms of context, the only thing you need to refer to might be the writer's intention based on the tone, which you can interpret, and you will have to kind of dig it out of the quotes, out of the techniques used. So the 5-step method my school gave me for unseen poetry was to first read the title and question to first understand what the poem must be about, and second, read the whole poem, and as you're reading the poem, you search the poem for the tone and the plot. So you need to understand what's going on, and this will help you for AO3 and also AO2 marks. Third step, identify the speaker and the reader's feelings in relation. So this also links with the context, and it can help you interpret the form and other exam techniques which you will analyze for your AO2 marks. Fourth step is to highlight you may not have a highlighter, so underline, but underline your important quotes. Underline your quotes where you can directly see that there's a language technique there, and this has to link with something to do with the actual intention of the poem. The whole purpose of the poem has to link with this exam technique. And the 5th step is to annotate for language and structure. So annotate and understand what can I analyze in terms of language. What does the structure tell me about the poem, and why have they done this? These 5 things you focus on, I think it will help you to get more marks. This is what I did, and I got nearly a grade 9. So, if you want to follow this advice, do find it. If you have a better method out there, if you found a better method which you found out there, you can use that, and 100% use that. If you don't have a method, here is one for you, but make sure that you do have a method. So I've covered examiner reports, assessment objectives, and things you must do and memorize for your texts and poems. You need to understand that GCSE English literature is, if you're anything like me and your brain is focused on a logical approach to everything, because I do a lot better in maths than English, so I'm focused more on the logical way to do this. In English literature, it's not going to be visible. You need to be composed and ready in the exam. You cannot panic. You need to know your timing, and you cannot treat it like a maths paper, because it's not all logical. It's somewhat creative. You need to follow this, and that will help you get very close to grade 9. If you want to follow Mr. Everything English's YouTube channel, that was very helpful for me, and I think that was everything I had done for GCSE English literature. I cannot remember much more right now. Of course, it needs to be a given that you know the text inside out going into the exam. Going into the exam, you need to know how much time you're going to spend reading the text, how much time you're going to spend on each question, and how much time you need to spend per paragraph as part of each essay for each question. You need to have this stuff prepared in your mind so you are fully ready for your exam. And if you can, do some practice if you haven't already done so. Do some practice questions, do some practice papers if you have not already for your English literature, because I didn't mention this because it wasn't part of my revision, but I did do it in school, because in school they made us do a lot of practice questions, so indirectly I was doing this, but not intentionally. So if you are not doing this, you should do this. Do practice questions, practice papers, and do it timed. Make sure you do it timed, because if timing is an issue for you as it was for me, the most beneficial thing you can do is fix your timing, fix your writing speed by doing exams in timed conditions, and that will also help you for GCSE English literature. Exam techniques need to be understood fully as well. Going into the exam, it must be a given that you understand all the exam techniques, and when you're given in unseen poetry, for example, and also this is more to do with English language, but in literature this comes in mostly in unseen poetry. You need to know your exam techniques off by heart. You need to be able to see them very quickly. You can't be spending too much time thinking, I can't find an exam technique right now, what am I doing? And that would lead to panic, that will lead to worse marks. You need to have the exam techniques, you need to have them, you need to know them by heart, so you can find them quickly and easily. And by understanding all of them as well, you can make context links from the language techniques used in the text. you need to also understand that all the language techniques you do not know will they can lead you to bleed marks in the exam. And what this means is if you do not know this and do not know how it links to context, you need to have done enough practice to know how to link to context because it cannot be explained very well. The only way you will become better at linking to context is through practice, so you must do practice. If you have your English literature exam soon, I would recommend doing at least 2 full essays as from part of your English literature exams, and try and link it to the context. You may not be able to mark it accurately, but try and look at full mark essays online and apply all that into your own practice questions for more marks. I think I've covered my entire GCSE English literature strategy. I'm pretty sure I've covered everything. So use this actionable step, make those flashcards, cover all the context and stuff, cover the language techniques, prepare your few quotes, prepare your few poems, prepare for unseen poetry. These are things you need to do today if you have your exam tomorrow. And do not panic in the exam. Be composed, be ready, understand what you are going to do for each time. Do not mess up with your timing. Know how long you're going to spend for each question, for each part of your question, and think, okay, I've gone into my exam hall at 8:30, at 9:25, for example, or 9:25. I'm going to finish this exam question, and then I'm going to move on, and I have to have done that. And the 5 minutes of the first 45 minutes will be spent reading, and then 40 minutes will be spent doing the essay. Like this, you prepare your timing. You have to be in control in your exam. Do not panic. Don't let the exam scare you. Don't let the exam question make you confused. Be in control and do your best, sit that paper and do your best. This is the only thing I can really tell you now. I've covered everything I think I can, and get that grade 9 in GCSE English literature.